one incident on the 1st of January, 1944-45, where a flight of 4 planes from our base took off with bombs. And as they circled to join up and get altitude, they saw some German fighter planes strafing a field that was fairly close to ours, and that field had P-38s, the twin-engine plane. So they dropped their bombs and went over. And we had one of our pilots, D.C. Johnson. He shot down one of the planes. He was on that mission. He was our tent mate. And in return, he got shot down. But he bailed out. His plane got shot up, and so he bailed out. And the rest of the crew came back, and they said, that was the only plane we lost. They said, where's Johnson? And someone said, the last I saw him, there was a German fighter plane shooting him up. So we all thought he was killed. So later on, that was in the morning, later on about noontime, we look across the field, and there's a guy coming riding a bicycle. It was D.C. Johnson. He had his parachute in the basket on the front of the bicycle. He shot, and we said, what happened to you? He says, well, I parachuted out, and I landed in this farmer's field. And he came with a pitchfork. He thought I was a German. So he said, I convinced him I was American. And then he let me take his bicycle. And it was a few miles away. He didn't get there till early afternoon. And it made the national newspapers. And just by coincidence, it was his 21st birthday.
Was it really?
And he shot down. It was the only plane he shot down, because we never saw, very rarely saw planes. A couple of times we saw them way far away, and they turned and headed back. We never could get anywhere near them.
And was D.C. Johnson one of your good friends from that?
He was in our tent. Yeah. He was a funny guy. We had a lot of fun. We had a good bunch of guys. We had all different kinds. There was quite a few Irish, and then there was two Jewish, and there was some of German descent, and there was 2 Polish. Wozniak from Connecticut was my bunkmate, and Johnson, and I forgot who the 4th was. We were 4 people to a tent. We had those canvas tents that we lived in. It was quite comfortable. We got good meals. You know, our main job was supporting ground forces, and there were times we would have one of our pilots in a tank, a U.S. Army tank, with radio contact with us. Really? And if they were held up by some forces on the other side, he would call us, give us directions to help them out. And then there were times we just went off 4 at a time probably, and then we just split up and found targets of opportunity. And the Hürtgen Forest was, actually it was in Germany, and they were planted trees, they were evergreens, and they were very thick, and you couldn't see any targets because they would be in the woods. We even had some missions where they would give us coordinates between certain roads or a canal and some roads and have us bomb a patch of woods, which all we could see was just a solid green cover. And I think some of them were successful because after we bombed, we could see smoke coming up and fire. So there evidently was something in there. Yeah. We made some longer trips into Germany itself. One trip we made, we carried 2 1,000-pound bombs with a delayed action fuse. So that took 10 seconds before it would explode. And we got, I thought it was a rumor, but they said Hitler was going to make a speech at this certain building. And we were bombing that building, a brick building. It was a low brick building, right, fairly well in the open. And the reason we had delayed action bombs, we could come in low and skid them right into the building. So each of our 4 planes took a little part of that building. It was a low brick building, probably just 2-story. And we each bombed a different part of the building and pretty well blew it up. We never heard what happened. We never saw any, no one shot back at us, or that was it. We never did find out what happened.
How did it feel to think that you were getting Hitler with your bombs?
Oh, pretty exciting. Actually, I've heard other people say later on, that was the best time of my life. You know, if you came back in one piece, where else? We had good friends, we were all kind of, you know, ready and able guys. And we could, there was Belgian beer on tap, and the people were really friendly to us. They invite us to their homes. They were wonderful. I always enjoyed Belgium more than any place. I was one of 4 pilots who were assigned to monitor the crossing of the Rhine River on the big push.
Really?
And we took off in the dark, in the morning. And when we got to the Rhine River, it was just getting light. And they were starting to assemble the floats so that they could build a bridge across the Rhine River. And when we got there, it had just started. They had one float ready and another one they were attaching to it. And our job was to just patrol up and down the river in case the German Air Force were coming to bomb or whatever. But we never saw any German airplanes. And we were told not to go change the mission. That's your job, stay there regardless. Protect the crossing. So we flew up and back for 2 hours. And we saw the whole crossing right there. In 2 hours, they were driving trucks across the Rhine River. They had all those floats assembled and locked together, and they were crossing the river.
Pretty impressive.
With tanks and trucks.